Yeah, I'm not kidding. Last month, I got 2.5 million views without posting any content. And no, I didn't build some AI agent or pay a bunch of influencers. It was all actually 100% free. If we haven't met yet, my name is Jason. My clients have done over 4 billion views online. And in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you every single step you need to know to do this for yourself. First and foremost, before we can get into any of this, you need to understand what this shift is, right? What we're seeing is a shift from influencing to re-influencing. Now, what does that mean? So, influencing is kind of what we know content as today, right? You have an influencer who makes a piece of content and it gets viewed by people, right? But now we're starting to see a shift into re-influencing, where instead of that one piece of content existing by itself, this one piece of content is getting remixed or re-influenced into all these other pieces of content that gets shared on other social media platforms and drives even more views and engagement for the original influencer. Here's a great example, a pretty recent example actually, of a influencer who pulled this off. So as you can see, this is Jake Paul, and he's the influencer, and these are the re-influencers who took Jake Paul's face and essentially transformed it in a bunch of different ways, remixed it in a bunch of different ways, and that actually drove him 1 billion total views in 6 days. So if that doesn't show how powerful this is, I don't know what does, because that is more views than any single one of his YouTube videos, any single one of his Vines have ever done in that period of time. So it's crazy. And now the big question is, like, why is this shift happening, right? The reason this is happening is because content supply is at an all-time high, right? You've probably noticed with AI, with all these tools, people are just pumping out content, right? It's so freaking easy. And so as an influencer, as a creator, you're now competing with so much more content, right? And it's just becoming harder and harder to break through that noise. And the second reason is people are copying content anyways. I'm sure if you've gotten any type of traction on your AI content, people have stolen your ideas. People have copied you because it's just that easy. So what the smartest creators are doing, like Jake Paul, is they're letting these people copy their content on a platform that they own, because it's already going to happen regardless. So now, how do you do it yourself, right? How do you re-influence your content now that we know how powerful it is? It's really simple, honestly. You create an AI image or video generator, you launch it on your socials, and you kind of just let your audience do the rest. And in terms of the platforms that you can do this on, these are kind of the two places where you can do it today. So Sora and FlickUp. On Sora, you can remix your AI style, but you don't have that much control over what those outputs are, right? Like Jake Paul, all he did was put his face on there, and that's about all he could control, which is why we saw some crazy outputs. And there's no like instant re-influencing, right? So he can't go and put a link to this generator in his bio and have people re-influence. They have to download the Sora app, which adds quite a bit of friction if you're not as well known as Jake Paul, which I'm sure you're not if you're watching this video. So that's why we're going to be going over FlickUp. So this is a platform where you can do the same thing as Sora in terms of letting people remix, and you have deep control over what those outputs are, and people can actually remix you or re-influence you with one click in your bio. So let's get started. So first things first, you need to create an account with FlickUp. The link will be linked right down below, or you can just head to flickup.ai/company/register. So we're going to head over there. I already have an account, so I will go ahead and just log in to that account. And here we go. This is my FlickUp account, my dashboard. The first thing we want to do is head over here to where it says Booths. Click Booths and click Create Booth, just like so. And then you'll be greeted with this page. Now, the most important step of this entire process has to happen now, all right? We have to come up with an idea for our FlickUp booth. So you kind of have two options of what you want to do here. As you can see, what we're creating here is basically the thing we want people to remix. So these are all a bunch of FlickUp booths that people are already making. If you need inspiration, you can just head to flickup.ai and kind of see what's trending. Hit the top created button over here, and you can see some super trendy ones there. But again, you have two options. You can either use what's trending or invent your own trend. Now, what does that look like? If you want to do the easy route, which I mean, I would honestly highly recommend at this stage because this is so new, just search AI image trend on TikTok, on Instagram, and see what people are talking about. So I just did a quick search. I didn't even know about this trend until today, but there's this kind of winter white lotus snow effect that people are making images with. So, as you can see, people are kind of showing you what prompts to use on Gemini. So this would be a super easy way to go ahead and put your brand in the center of it. Now, another option is just look at your own content, right? If you're watching this, you probably already make AI content. You probably have some sort of brand, some sort of style that you use. And so just start there, As you can see, this is one of our creators, AI Fusion Master. So I went to his profile as an example. He makes these kind of like countries as different things. Countries as UFC fighters, countries as celebrity UFC fighters. So taking that concept and checking the comments to see what audiences already want, right? So this was super quick. I just opened his comments and people were like, where's Greece? Where's Jamaica? Where's Poland? Right? These are things that people basically already want to create and re-influence. Now, this is very important. The biggest mistake that creators make on FlickUp, which is why I put this here, is they upload their content or prompts as is. This is going to do you such a disservice. That's not how this works. That doesn't get people excited. So do not just upload your content or prompts as is. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So here's an example of how we took AI Fusion's concept into a bad idea versus a great idea, right? So a bad idea would be uploading the content as is on the left side here, right? Donald Trump with giant boxers, right? That's too specific and there's no clear user input, right? I see a FlickUp booth and I'm like, Donald Trump with giant boxers, like what am I supposed to do with that? Like that's a cool, cool story, bro. Tell it at parties, like it doesn't give the user enough to jump off of. But a great idea, using the exact same concept, is your country as giant boxers. So in the same way that people were requesting their own countries, making that the trend is very great because it's not too specific and it's not too broad. And there's also a very clear user input that you're asking of people, right? Instead of giving them a starting point and making them do all the work of figuring out what you want them to create on top of it, you're literally just telling them, put in your country, man, and we'll handle the rest. So now that you have the idea, we can head over to step 4, which is selecting image or video booth. So I'll show you over here. Let me zoom in. You can select image or video booth. An important thing to note is that right now, image booths are the only things that you can let your audience use for free. If you choose to do a video booth, they will have to pay to use that, which you do get a cut of the revenue from. But for this video's sake, we're gonna stick with image booth because we want you to go viral, all right? So, image booth. Now next up, we're gonna add a booth name. So I'll say your country as, boxers. Cool. And then we wanna add a description. So we kind of just want to instruct the users, what to do. So we'll say, type your country and watch it come to life as celebrity boxers. Awesome. Next step, we want to add reference images and prompt enhancement instructions. So the reference images are optional, right? Some of these trends, like the White Lotus one I showed you, likely doesn't need reference images, right? That's all prompt based. All people are sharing is the prompts. But in this case, we definitely would benefit from using some reference images. So I've already got some over here. Let me just grab them for y'all. All right, there we go. And now, a pretty important step is the prompt enhancement instructions. So this is kind of where a bulk of the creativity comes into play, where you're basically guiding what these outputs will look like and what the AI should do with that user input, which in this case is just a country. So I already wrote them down over here for this specific example. So I will copy that over to FlickUp real quick. While I'm typing this, I'm actually going to guide you through why I structured the prompt in the way that I did. So the first thing we said was using the following country. So making it very clear as to, what input we're working with here. Identify the president and 2 notable celebrities from that country. So what this AI model is really good at is actually doing some analysis before the actual image gets generated. So that's why we're asking it to first identify the country and then identify who those people are that it's going to generate. And your outputs are going to be significantly better. So then we'll say create a 4K realistic image, then create a 4K realistic image. That's always helpful to enter the style that you want of that country at a normal height. With the president of that country. With the president of that country at a normal height. And those 2 celebrities walking in giant form behind the president. And then we'll clarify, put all of them in boxing attire. And the colors in scene should match the country. So we're basically just kind of describing in plain English, all the different parts of this image. Now the final thing, which is super important, is ending your prompt with the kind of setting up what the user is going to put in. So we'll say the chosen country is, and put a colon there. And now we're setting it up perfectly to where the user gets to go and finish that prompt, right? So they'll say USA. Cool. Now this USA, when it gets sent to the AI, is going to send exactly like that. So that's why we want to end with the chosen country is. Cool. So we will go ahead and test that using this example prompt right here. Hit generate preview. And let's see how that looks. And beautiful. There you go. As you can see, it's Joe Biden, maybe Beyonce, I think, The Rock. It did a pretty solid job. I like that. Cool. So now we can literally just hit create image booth. And now you are officially live. There we go. If you want to check it out now that you've published it, just go to flickup.ai and you'll see yourself pop up at the top of recently added. So we'll click here. And this is the booth that we made. So if you want, we can test it as a user as well. So pretend I'm a user. I'm going to say France and hit generate. Beautiful. So there's Emmanuel Macron with, can't name those celebrities, but yeah, you get the idea. And now, let's see, what step are we on? We tested the booth. Now you want to create and publish your link. So as you can see, we found the booth right here. If you go ahead and click on your name, see there's mine, Jason Stacks, you'll get to this page. Let me zoom out. This page, this is your FlickUp profile. So this is where you want to send people to use your models. Obviously, you can also send people the direct link to the booth if you're doing, direct promo for that. Maybe it's a link in bio and you have them, like a link tree and you have them all listed. But I think the best idea is literally just putting your URL. As you can see, mine is flickup.ai/JasonStacks. Just copying that and throwing it into your Instagram or TikTok bios. But cool. Congratulations, you've made your first AI booth. Clap it up. Now that you've made your first AI booth, we gotta talk about how do we make it go viral, right? That's what we're all here for. We want people now using this booth. I think we've made a pretty viral concept. Everyone lives in a country. Everyone knows celebrities, right? So let's get people using it. Here are the do nots of marketing your FlickUp booth. So do not continue posting the same content. If you want your booth to do well, don't post the same content. It's not gonna work. And also, do not post your link with no context, right? So I can go put it in my bio, but if I'm not telling them anything about it, it's just gonna sit there and collect dust. So here are the two options that I've personally used that have been very successful at getting my generators to go viral. So first is organic short form, and second is organic Reddit. Let's start with short form. So I want to show you guys a couple examples that I've seen work well, starting with TikTok right here. As you can see, it was just a very simple tutorial, and I framed myself as just like a user who found this tool, right, rather than the creator of it. So I think that's why I did really well. This got over 400,000 views and got a lot of traffic to my ClickUp generator. And the cool thing about TikTok, which I would definitely, which is why I would recommend using it, is people can actually comment their images right underneath. So you kind of create this like community library of people using your AI booths. So I think that is a really underrated thing that not enough people have leveraged. And I think that's the reason this thing went viral, right? Because they value comments, and especially this new feature like image comments, so highly. So if you can optimize for that, you're gonna crush it. Cool. Now, here's another example. This is not a ClickUp creator, but I just thought he did a really nice job. Yeah, so I really like how
These
again, he framed
Polaroids are
himself
going
as a
stupid
user,
viral, and this
he
is how you
showed
can make it.
hands-on,
It's free.
you
And
know,
no, you
how
don't
it
have to
works.
type in some
And I
crazy
think
prompt.
that always
It
does a
literally
really
takes
nice job,
3 clicks.
especially
First,
when
go to
you can speed it
ClickUp.ai,
up
click the
for the
Polaroid
user
model,
make
and
it
upload a
feel
photo.
instant
Then
in that
type in
tutorial.
person or
It
even
really
a celebrity's
grabs their
name,
attention.
and voila! Hope this helps.
Cool, here's some tips when it comes to doing the short form marketing. So you want to have a clear hook. For example, mine was, these Polaroids are going crazy viral, right? That's a pretty good hook. And you also definitely want to show a screen recording of your booth so that people understand how it works and what their experience is going to look like when they go and find it themselves. And again, yeah, TikTok is the best for image comments. Cool, now let's take a look at Reddit. So here's an example of one of my Reddit posts that did really well. This was a generator where you could upload a photo and see if it would beat, if 100 of that photo would beat a silverback gorilla. So again, I framed myself as a user and just threw it in a bunch of Reddit servers. So I said, sounds about right. I put a screenshot of, yes, 100 John Cena's would beat a silverback gorilla. And we got a lot of comments. Again, Reddit works really well because it creates this
Turn Leonardo DiCaprio into Kim Kardashian.
Comment their results.
What? Now into Drake.
Nice little feed.
Holy
So
shit.
definitely Reddit
Now
is super
Ronaldo.
underrated.
No way.
Here's
The
another
gap
example
between wanting to create
of
and
a
actually
non-ClickUp
creating
creator
just disappeared.
that had a pretty
All
nice
it takes
Reddit
is
post,
one
so
photo
this
in
is the
Hicksfield
Gemini
AI. I made
AI
these using the
subreddit.
new face swap.
As you can see, 138 comments, and again, they got a lot of people like sharing their own images in the comments, which does really, really well. Cool. Now here are some tips for Reddit. So again, frame yourself as a user, not as a creator. People don't like self-promo, so even when people catch on, they will call you out for it, but the majority of people won't really bat an eye. And don't mention ClickUp in the initial post, right? You, again, do not want to sound like you're self-promoting your ClickUp page. Like imagine you go on Reddit and you're like, guys, subscribe to me on YouTube. Like, people would be clocking it instantly. So, and then one more thing, some subreddits may delete your post or reject it for being too low effort or something like that. But keep trying, there's plenty of subreddits to go around. If you can get like in just a couple of them, that should do the trick. Cool, now that you've learned what re-influencing is, how to launch your own, and how to make it go viral, we gotta talk about how do you turn this into a real business by 2026. So I mentioned I've done $15,000 in brand deals from this, right? The biggest thing is build influence first, all right? I mentioned the YouTube comparison earlier. This is literally like 2005 YouTube. Here's an OG YouTuber right here, Shane Dawson. And back then on YouTube, people were building brands and building influence before they were even thinking about monetization. So again, right, here's Jake Paul. He's one of the first people to tap into this re-influencing. And one user of Jake Paul's models equals, his normal content, one user seeing his normal content is just one view. But one user using his AI models is 100 views. And this is from industry standards. This is from FlickUp as a whole, right? You're getting about 100 views for every user, which means 100 times more reach than literally anything else you can be doing on social media. Which means you are going to be 100 times more valuable to brands. These are some brands that have already started tapping into this re-influencing behavior, all right? One of which is Back to the Future. So this is a brand that actually paid me about $10,000 for just 10,000 images, right? I was able to get 10,000 fan images generated with a Back to the Future themed booth, and I was able to make $10,000. Now, imagine how valuable you will be if you're getting 10,000 generations every single week. You are going to become so valuable to the brands who want to sponsor you and pay for that reach. All right? So before I let you go, I want to finish up with a little story. All right. This was me in probably like 2016. I think like 2016. And I was actually popular on a little app called Musical.ly. All right, this was before it was called TikTok, before anybody even knew what it was. When, to brands or to professionals in the space, they saw this as some cheesy little app, some dumb little app that kids used, right? This was not something that advertisers or brands or creators really took seriously. But there's me becoming a pretty big creator on that platform. And one of the biggest advice I got was do not monetize until 100,000 followers. All right. And this was probably some of the best advice I ever got, because what it allowed me to do was build authenticity. My content came off as more authentic because I was not in it for money, which is pretty rare these days, right? It feels like everybody's posting just to get a dime out of you. I was building trust, right? By not asking your audience for anything. I think, Alex Hormozi talks about this a lot, where it's like give, then ask, right? That's why we all trust Alex Hormozi, because he just gives. So you want to build that trust with your audience and that loyalty, right? You want people to be so loyal to you, so excited to use your generators because they know they're high quality, that they continue coming back every single day. And in my case, building that authenticity, trust, and loyalty actually led me to some places that I could have never imagined. So I ended up collabing with some really big creators, including Josh Richards. He has, tens of millions of followers. I was able to host meet and greets, and I was even able to get a spot in a movie called Summertime Dropouts. And here's one of our creators that's actually doing it right now with AI. And we're seeing this exact same thing that I experienced play out. So he's done a really great job of, creating that authenticity and not asking. He has not monetized up to this point. And what that's led him to is a TED Talk. He's literally spoken on stage at TED, and he's had official partnerships with Mark Cuban, Shaq, and Snoop Dogg, just to name a few. So with that, what are you waiting for? Go build your influence, build a loyal audience using your FlickUp booths, and just watch your life change in the next 120 days. Commit to it, be consistent, and most importantly, be creative. If you need help along the way, I'm here. Just drop a comment, drop a post in the school community. We'll use some of your booths in here just to get that ball rolling. But yeah, I'm super excited to have you here, and go kill it. Peace.